Who's here is not familiar with the Mahayana? Anybody not familiar with the concept of the Mahayana? Okay, so the Mahayana is crudely put, it was an evolution or a reinvigorating of the Buddha's teaching to try and get to that sense of what is essential in Buddhism is to awaken, and to awaken for the benefit of all beings. Yeah. So that's what's called the Bodhisattva ideal, to awaken for the benefit of all beings. And my favourite Mahayana sutra is the Vimalakirti Nidesha. Yeah. Put your hand up if you've heard of the Vimalakirti Nidesha. Yeah. So not many people have heard of the Vimalakirti Nidesha. It was written in, they don't exactly know, but about the 1st or 2nd century Common Era. So, 2,000 years ago, more or less, yeah. And it is a work of absolute, I nearly said political genius, but I don't know why, political genius? Spiritual genius. It is absolutely, it's very funny, I think. And it's just got so many interesting concepts told in a story-like way. At one point in the sutra, the Buddha says, where are the best lion thrones? Because, they want to kind of... And then he sort of summons the best lion thrones from the galaxy, the universe, and they bring them there so as people can sit on them. And but they also teach the Dharma through smell. So there's a universe or a galaxy where Buddhism, the Dharma, is taught through smell. And they go and get the food from that place, and this kind of one bowl of this food is enough, the smell of it is enough to nourish thousands upon thousands of people and also inspire them in the Bodhisattva ideal, in the ideal to awaken for the benefit of all beings. So I'm trying that with chocolate, basically. That's a long way of sort of saying I've got chocolate here. There's one year, what I did was I had cheap chocolate to start with. I said, who wants chocolate? Yeah, yeah, yeah. And the people who were most enthusiastic, I gave them the cheap chocolate. They didn't know. They just thought it's chocolate. And I gave them the chocolate. They opened it up and they're all excited. And then I sort of said, and now I've got some Montezuma dark chocolate buttons. And I said, what's happened to your mental states? Because they were on, I'm pointing that way because they were on the left. And they went, having gone from elation to despair, because they had got the rubbish. Yeah. Anyway, so I'm not going to teach it that way this year. Yeah. So I'm going to teach it as in, I'm going to give you a mindfulness teaching based around chocolate. But I don't know how I'm going to do this because it might take ages. So we'll have to go outside of space and time. But this is vegan. Yeah. It's got marzipan in it. Anybody particularly like marzipan? I'm going to throw it your way. It might kill somebody on the way, but it'll be... this is German. I don't know whether it's vegan. I can't read German, and I haven't looked at it. Anybody want to take a risk on it? 70% dark. Yeah. So what you do is you take off and pass it round. Yeah. So we'll start there. This is green and blacks. Yeah. Pass it there. It needs to go that way. Now, when you get the chocolate, don't put it in your mouth yet. You've already blown it. You have completely blown it. That's not the teaching. It's kind of called deferred gratification. So, Lucy, can you pass that back? And then this, as far as I'm aware, on this planet, this is the best chocolate. So, you know, Montezuma dark chocolate buttons. And I did buy loads of them, but they're expensive. And I couldn't, I'm afraid I wasn't generous enough to bring enough packets. But there might be, in this packet, there might be enough for everyone to have one. Yeah? I do have another packet in my tent, and I could send somebody up there to get them, but let's see how they go around. So you've got to hold it in your hand without it letting it melt. So maybe put it on until I give you the mindful instruction. Yeah, you got that? Yeah. This makes great YouTube, doesn't it? Yeah, those guys are eating chocolate. He's saying nothing meaningful yet. What's your name? Susie. Susie, can you take that and then pass it round? I'll be watching. Just open it. I take a chocolate button. And move it on, and everyone gets the chocolate button. So whilst that's happening, okay, no, what I'll do is I'll give that teaching, and you can do it in your own time through the talk. So you take the chocolate. Now, chocolate, when it's at body temperature, is at its optimum taste. So you put it on your tongue, and you just let it melt. That's how to eat chocolate. Yeah. So if you've learnt nothing from my talk by the end of it, I will remind you about this teaching so as you never forget how to eat chocolate to maximize pleasure. Anyway, so Mahayana Sutra, the Vimalakirti Nidesha, and it starts with the Buddha teaching. And there's hundreds of thousands of beings in the teaching, and I happen to be there. I was there, and the Buddha is teaching. Yeah, according to our time span, you know, it was 1st or 2nd century, and the Buddha was there teaching. And he was sort of saying about the need to develop compassion. And he sort of illustrated this planet. Beautiful planet where there was lots of beings evolving, but they were really struggling to evolve. They were kind of quite dense matter. And he kind of flashed up in our minds this world system. And it looked pretty, you know, the planet looked amazing, but the beings and the energy of the place looked pretty drastic. But I, being heroic, when he said we need volunteers to go to that planet, I put my hand up. I'll go there. I will go there for the benefit of all beings to teach the Dharma. And then he showed, as the time moved on, because in this realm of the vast blue sky, there is no time. And so I was able to see it before I came. And I had this thought in my mind, how come this planet and these beings is so awful, there's so much suffering? Because the Buddha Amitabha, his realm is supposed to be pure. His realm is supposed to be pure, and yet you look at this, there's war, there's famine, there's greed, hatred, you know, pollution, destruction of the land, there's no respect for life. And the Buddha read my mind, because that's what happens in these realms. Jayaraja, are you really having that thought that the realm of Amitabha is not a pure realm? And I kind of looked embarrassed. And he says, the realm of a Buddha is as pure as the Buddha. But how the realm is viewed is dependent upon the purity of the mind. So it's kind of, and then to illustrate that, the Buddha Amitabha unfolded his legs from meditation and just touched the world system with his toe. And for a moment, I could see it in all its purity. Absolutely pure and perfect. And then he lifted his toe, went back into meditation, and the world was as we see it. Obviously, my mind was not pure. So then this was, as I say, 1st, 2nd century, I can't remember the exact date. But then we had to go into training. It was kind of like, yeah, but do I really need training? I'm kind of so keen. I want to go to that planet and I want to help. And we were assigned to different figures, different archetypal beings. And I was ascribed to a figure called Green Tara. And so, Green Tara teaches, and I'm trying to there with my arrogance of sort of thinking, I can go down and I can be on this planet and be a force for good. She's saying, it's not that simple, Jayaraja. Well, what can be so difficult about it? You just go down there, you practice the Dharma, and people will awaken and I will grow spiritually. Matter on that planet is quite dense. What do you mean matter is quite dense? Well, here we are like lights that intersect and shine. And when they cross, the light changes colour but doesn't block or interrupt the flow of light. And we can see all the different lights shining in all sorts of different ways. And on that planet, that isn't the case. There is this density of being. That means what is going on internally is not visible, mostly. Or there's such difficulty in perceiving what is going on internally with others that leads to a sense of loneliness and isolation. I'm kind of like, really? But surely if you're aware, you'll be able to see through people's eyes and their facial expression and their body, you'll be able to know what's going on inside them. Jayaraja, do you remember when Amitabha touched the planet with his foot and you showed how it was really? Yeah, I do remember that. Well, when you're on that planet, you are going through such a lot of struggle yourself that you don't see other people. It's really hard to see them. Oh, come on. But I will remember you, Tara. I will never forget you. How can I forget the beauty of you, Tara? You'll be always with me. You will forget, Jayaraja. In order to be born on that planet, you gestate for 9 months. During that time, you undergo the whole evolution of from like a reptile through to a mammal, and then you're born. And for the first maybe 9 to 12 years, you are conditioned in such a strong way of like and dislike, good and bad, right and wrong, selfish or selfless, that by the time you come to self-awareness of any depth or weight, you are a strongly conditioned being and are going around creating all manner of suffering for yourself and others. It brought me up short. There I was trying to remember Tara's face, and would I ever forget that beauty? A beauty that's beyond words, but when I think about being in the mountains and the moonlight shining through or silhouetting a tree, or being in the mountains on a clear sky under 1,000 myriad stars, or the sunset over the ocean, or a bluebell wood in the early spring when the beech leaves are just unfurling and the mulch of the winter leaves is almost gone. and the sunshine is shining through the leaves. That kind of beauty. But Tara says, no, Jayaraja, you'll forget. How bad can it be on this planet, I'm saying? He says, well, well, what happens is you get a really strong sense of self and other. Yeah? This is me. That is them. And you can't see, as in this realm, where we're like lights passing through each other. In that realm, there's a density. And we don't know the inner world of others. And so we're left, having been conditioned through this childhood, kind of with a sense of we're not enough. We're flawed. There's something wrong with us. And we fall into the idea of good and bad, right and wrong. And we feel incredibly lonely. We lose touch with a deep sense of meaning on which you'll go to that planet. So Tara, how are we going to get by on that? Jayaraja, it's not easy. But one of the things that we'll do over this next period of training is each person will find a golden thread that will lead them back to deeper meaning and will lead them back to that sense of we're not separate. Wow. What will my golden thread be? Well, the golden thread needs to be something that is all around, so no matter where you are, you'll find access to it. But you need to go into that to such depth that you find your way home. And then, having found your way home, you realize that there is no separation, there is no self and other, and you can be of benefit both to yourself and others. So I was very keen to find out what my golden thread was. Her golden thread, you can eat your chocolate by the way now, it's kind of, Some people's golden thread was beauty. And they went to classes where they would kind of marvel at beauty. They would create beauty. They would look for beauty. Some of them it was beauty in the 3D form, like sculpture. Some of them it was beauty in painting, being able to really look. Yeah. Rembrandt. Rodin. Rembrandt obviously trained in one of those schools. Rodin as well. Michelangelo. What was to be my school? What was to be my thread? Then I was told there was more, often you'd have more than one thread, because actually I was a bit of a blockhead. So I needed quite a few. And I could go off in any direction. So it was kind of like teaching, learning. That was to be my thread. Because everywhere you would find education or teaching, and it was kind of like, Jayaraja, you get that thread, keep pulling it, keep pulling it. How do you teach? How do you learn? If you go deeply enough into that, you start to realize the wisdom that is within. The all-knowing, what is worth knowing. So that was to be my thread. Also, there was a thing about physicality. So it's kind of like, it wasn't just learning as in, sort of philosophy. No, I wasn't Socrates. It was kind of learning about physical things. How to throw a ball. go, how can, Tara, how can, what, how does that lead anywhere? Jayaraja. Kicking a ball can lead to awakening. How can kicking a ball lead to awakening? Well, you get teams and they play, and the athleticism and the beauty, the teamwork. Eric Cantona. Wow. Yeah. Those of you who don't know where Eric Cantona is, you follow that thread, Jayaraja. My God, yes, I was obviously a dunce. Still am. So, we didn't just study with Tara, and I would look at Tara and think, I will never forget Tara. And I think the fact that she was green was also kind of a teaching. What is it to meditate upon green? What is it to really know the spiritual significance of green? And it's all around on this planet. And so much of it is connected with beauty. Anyway, I also had classes with this guy. He was kind of a fearsome looking character. Kind of one time came dressed in a tiger skin. He would look at you with this furrowed brow. Fearsome gaze that would see right to the depth of you. And yet on his face, on his lips, played this warmth, this gentle smile of love. And it was hard to kind of tune into that gentle smile of love because it was so terrifying to be really seen by someone. For somebody to see the depth of my potential, of your potential. And he looked at me, Jayaraja, you don't realize what you're capable of. That was frightening to hear that, because what I'm capable of, both of good and bad on this planet. Keep the golden thread. And we would mingle sometimes, and you would hear about other people's golden threads and other people's, where they were going to, the conditions that they were going to be born into on this planet. And you would think, we've got such a bond of connection that I won't forget them. But no, Tara would tell us, when you get born into that planet, you spend 9 months in the mother's womb. You spend 12 years before the light really goes on and you realize you are someone separate from others. And there's all these likes and dislikes. There's all these habit patterns having been formed. And you're born into a particular place in a particular culture shaped by those parents, who in turn were shaped by their parents. And then they're shaped by the conditions of the culture and the society. Anyway, it was coming nearer to the time to be reborn. And we were given glimpses of the planet and what was happening. Greed was worse than ever. Those in power, because power seemed important, people didn't seem to be able to self-organize. So they had these structures, governments, countries. And the people responsible in the government who held power, there was such corruption, such fear. And yet, when we could look at them, we could sort of see the fear that was driving them. And that we also would fall into that fear as well. That fear of separation. That fear of loss of meaning. That fear of aloneness. But Tara, isn't there religion everywhere on that planet? Wouldn't that be the best thread? No, Jayaraja. What tends to happen with religion is that though, and this is a metaphor, she said, and it's important not to be literal because that is one of the dangers on that particular planet, is literalism. She said that sometimes great beings are reborn and they make great progress. And then what happens quite soon is people turn that into a dogma. This is right, this is wrong. And it's as if trying to find a beautiful ancient city at the top of a beautiful hill in a forest. They've stopped halfway. And they've built a new city and made all sorts of rules that determine who is good and who is bad. And from there, it gradually deteriorates and becomes part of the problem. So literalism. Beware literalism, Jayaraja. Beware literalism. But aren't all the religions the same, Tara? It depends how you look at it. You look at it in terms of method or of doctrine. If you look in terms of doctrine, they are not the same. If you look in terms of method, they are not the same. So, are they the same in any way? Yes, they're the same in the way of aspiration to freedom. They're the same in the way of aspiration to love, to finding our way home. But they're different in method and doctrine. Yes. Method is where we need to have our focus. It's not about belief, she said to me. It's not about belief. It's about practice. So what practices do I do? Well, people can get literal about the practices and get dogmatic about the practices too. It's not that easy, Jayaraja. And as I sat in these classes over years, I realized it was going to be a tough gig. How easy it was to get lost. How easy it was to get confused. And yet at the same time, this desperate longing to return to that sense of connectedness to reality, to connectedness to love. So I asked her about love. Tara, tell me about love. Beginning to sound a bit like Khalil Gibran now, but anyway, so tell me about love. She said, well, on that planet, it's often associated with sex. Is it? Yeah, it's often associated with sex. People often think love and sex, they're the same thing. Oh, aren't they the same thing? No, they're far apart. But that's not to sort of say that they might not be connected. He said, now I'm going to tell you something, and it's pretty shocking. I was going, God, you know, it's kind of, I've heard many shocking things so far. And she said, well, you know that the matter is quite dense on that planet. And the reproductive organs, those which are most enticing sexually, are also the excretory functions as well. Oh, and I say that, I laughed for so long. And she wasn't laughing. Jayaraja, that's the way it is there. Oh my God. I was beginning to regret putting my hand up. But when you put your hand up to volunteer, and Amitabha witnesses that, you can't go back on it. Okay. So, Tara, how do I find my way back? Your golden thread. Those early years will condition you really strongly, but you'll find your thread, because it will be one of those things that's all around. Education, beauty, courage, kindness, creativity, nature. They're your threads. Go deeply into them, into the heart, and realize, the more fully that you can realize the beating of your own heart and the sensitivity to your own heart, whilst at the same time listening to the authenticity of your stomach. On this planet, the digestive system is not just digesting food, but digesting emotion. It holds our authenticity. It holds our passion and our courage. And to be able to sit in the stomach and sit in the heart, we begin the process of connecting more deeply with ourselves. And the more deeply we connect with ourselves, the more deeply we can connect with others. And then as we see them, we can start to see the light within them and the non-separation. Anything else, Tara, before I go? You'll do all right, Jayaraja, if you focus on friendship. Friendship. What is friendship, Tara? Friendship is on this planet. These beings. You'll kind of find some that have a spark and an interest. There's kind of probably 3 levels of friendship on that planet. There's the friends that are useful to us. The friend that he's good at fixing your car and you're good at painting and decorating or gardening. There's those friendships. Don't undervalue them. But there is a deeper level of friendship. What's that? Friendship of pleasure. Pleasure. But, no, you kind of will have friends that you enjoy doing things with, creative things with, that you enjoy adventures with, that you can enjoy beauty, your particular golden thread. Friends who you can play football with. Friends who you can go out, cook delicious meals in exchange, sit around playing board games or having conversation. Friends you can wrestle with. That sounds good. Don't dismiss friendships of pleasure. Value them. But know that there's a deeper level of friendship. Oh, what's that? It's friendship of ideals. The friends who share our ideals to grow. The friends who share our ideals for kindness. Friends who share our ideal to learn to really love ourselves and others. Wow. Is there anything more on friendship, Tara? And she said sometimes when you move to the 3rd level of friendship, the other 2 friendships tend to fall away. And there can be a period where you feel quite fearful that if I continue on this journey into the belly and the heart, I will lose my friends. I will lose who I am. And often on that planet, she told us, it's easy to forget who we are. We often look to others to mirror us so as we can know who we are. And the messages we get back are often confusing. And often we do things to try and get the message we want, losing connection with ourselves even more. So, friendship of ideal. So how do we cultivate these friendships of ideals? Go into the heart. Find your golden thread, Jayaraja. Keep that golden thread alive. Also, remember this, that all friendships of depth, on the third level of friendship, are based on forgiveness. Because we are able to see each other's flaws. And as we more deeply connect, other people see our flaws, and we feel less inclined to hide them, much as we try and hide them from the rest of the world. But we allow ourselves to be seen. And in our friends, we see them in their wholeness, we see their flaws, but we relate to the best part of them. We relate to the heart of them. Anything else on friendship, Tara? Yes. Sometimes what happens in friendship is we try and possess the friend. We try and, this is my friend, rather than seeing friendship as this process, a process of being open and transparent with another human being, and allowing ourselves to be as open and transparent with another human being as possible. And because of the dense matter and the whole sexual thing, it gets confusing. So don't just have your sexual partner as your friend. Have a breadth and depth of friendship and intimacy widely. And then the sexual relationship has got a chance to succeed. But it's really hard. Craving for sexual expression on that planet is particularly intense. Really? Particularly intense. Yeah, but what about the excretory organs, Jayaraja? Take it from me. It's intense. It leads to a particular kind of madness. Friendship. If you manage to be with a sexual partner for 2.5 years or 3, you're starting to move into the territory of friendship, Jayaraja. But it takes that 3 years. Those first 2, you're crazy. You can't see the other person. The first 6 months are euphoric. And the best thing that can happen then is you somehow lose sight of that person and never meet them again. But you remember that longing for intimacy and connection, and that will lead you on. God, this was beginning to sound like a nightmare. Anyway, Tara said, Jayaraja, I know you're a blockhead, but I think you're about ready. I was particularly scared. I was particularly fearful. She'd shown me some of the things that would happen to me in my childhood. And that was quite terrifying. And then, the next thing I remember is hearing a heartbeat and then warmth, coziness, and then pain, excruciating pain and fear, terror, and then birth. Confusion, lostness, confusion, anger, frustration, anger, like a heartbeat, lost. And then the golden thread. Not the golden thread as I had imagined it. Education seemed so far away from the golden thread I'd imagined. But then, 20 years old, realizing the joy of learning. How amazing. And then finding Tara. The representation. And here I am with you guys. Complete blockhead. Anyone, is Hridaya Gita here by any chance? No. Okay. I'm going to call on Hannah. Hannah, I'm going to ask you to lead the Tara mantra. Do you think you can do that?
Yeah.
Okay. So, and as Hannah does the Tara mantra, I want you to feel into your tummy and into your heart and look around. And then as the mantra fades, I will just remind you of the chocolate teaching. I don't need to do that now, I've done it. As the mantra fades, you can just go. All right. Oh, and the zines. Okay. So think about what your golden thread is. And
Tare to Tare.